Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez, left, and Rep. Keith Ellison of Minnesota, the DNC deputy chairman, are among those backing a controversial plan that would greatly diminish the voice that so-called superdelegates have in the party's presidential nomination process. Momentum is growing within the Democratic National Committee for a significant reform to the party's presidential nominating process, but the proposed change has caused a leading California Democrat to question whether Russian meddling is behind the effort. At a Friday meeting of the DNC's Rules and Bylaws Committee, a majority of that panel expressed support for dramatically reducing the power of superdelegates at the party's national convention. Under the plan, superdelegates would not have a vote on the convention's first ballot. Under the party's current system, superdelegates automatically get convention seats and a vote, and they are not bound to support a candidate based on their state's primary or caucus results. Superdelegates, who include Democrats serving in Congress and other key party officials, comprised close to 15% of the overall delegate number at the party's 2016 convention, and most supported Hillary Clinton. That was a bone of contention for supporters of the insurgent nomination bid by Sen. Bernie Sanders, Vermont, and the continued existence of superdelegates remains a major sticking point for many of these activists. Thus, stripping superdelegates of a first ballot say in choosing the nominee would be an important step toward unifying the party ahead of the 2020 presidential election, given that the last time Democrats needed more than one ballot to anoint their nominee was in 1952. But while the proposal has the backing of DNC Chairman Tom Perez, Deputy Chairman Keith Ellison, who's also a House member from Minnesota, Sen. Tim Kaine of Virginia, and top Sanders ally Larry Cohen, a small band of DNC members and some Democrats in Congress remain resolutely opposed to any effort to diminish the standing of superdelegates. Bob Mulholland, a DNC member and longtime Key Party operative based in California, sent an email Friday to other DNC members from the Golden State that implied Russian President Vladimir Putin might be behind the reform effort. The basis for his claim? An activist from West Virginia promoting the changes, who he had seen at two National Party gatherings, admitted to him that she was a Green Party member and had voted for its nominee, Jill Stein, in the 2016 election. I concluded someone is picking up her expenses, but there she and others are demanding we change our rules, Mulholland wrote. The Putin operation is still active. I'm a big believer that Putin has not let off the gas. Bob Mulholland, a Democratic National Committee member from California, contacted by HuffPost on Sunday, Mulholland conceded he had no proof the woman, who he did not name, was bankrolled by Putin. But he said that, when people show up who have no connection to the party and they show up at events requiring transportation of hundreds of miles, I always think they're working for somebody. He added, I'm a big believer that Putin has not let off the gas. Anyone who thinks Putin would not be interfering with future elections needs to have their head examined. In his Friday email, Mulholland said, I don't know how many DNC members have been in Moscow having dinner with Putin, but Jill Stein wasn't at Putin's table. Votes that went for Stein in several key states, including Wisconsin, Michigan and Pennsylvania, have caused some Democrats to blame her for Clinton's loss to Donald Trump and wonder whether Russians helped promote the Green Party candidate as part of their interference in the presidential campaign. Mulholland's email also referenced a 2015 dinner Stein attended in Moscow for Russia Today, an international news channel owned by the Russian government. Earlier Friday, Mulholland sent a separate email to Perez and Ellison in which he compared the push to diminish the cloud of superdelegates to the violent suppression of the civil rights movement. In the email, first reported on by The Washington Post, Mulholland affixed a photo of police beating Rep. John Lewis, Diga, during the 1965 Voting Rights March in Selma, Alabama. Now I understand that the two of you are conspiring with Bernie Sanders to block Congress members John Lewis, see photo of police beating Lewis, Maxine Waters, Barbara Lee and the rest of the congressional delegation, governors, state party chairs and the rest of us DNC members from entering our convention floor in 2020 as voters, he wrote. I don't know if you will have paid thugs at the doorways to beat up Congressman Lewis and the rest of us or not. The effort to scale back Superdelegate's power began almost 2 years ago at the Rules and Bylaws Committee meeting immediately preceding the 2016 Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia. Sanders supporters pushed hard for a slate of reforms to the nominating process that were summarily rejected by the party. But officials brokered a compromise to convene a Unity and Reform Commission that included Sanders' appointees roughly proportional to his share of the primary vote and was charged with examining ways to improve the presidential nominating process and the functioning of the DNC. The commission released a series of recommendations in December, including a call for eliminating about two-thirds of the number of superdelegates. The new plan to retain the number of superdelegates but prevent them from meaningfully affecting the nomination, if recent history is any guide, is agreeable to reformers because of its greater simplicity and likelihood of passage by the entire DNC membership. Unlike the Unity Commission's original proposal, which would have required approval by two-thirds of the DNC's membership, the new superdelegate proposal would require just a simple majority. The Rules and Bylaws Committee has until June 30 to decide on its final proposals to the entire DNC membership. The DNC will then vote on the recommendations at an August 23-25 national meeting in Chicago. To underscore his complaints about reducing the cloud of Democratic Party superdelegates, Mulholland attached to a Friday email this photo of Alabama police beating civil rights leader John Lewis in 1965, seen on photo's right side. Lewis is now a House member from Georgia. The deliberations on the nomination process have not been without a significant defeat for reformers eager to make the party more accessible to independents and progressives who previously have stayed on the political sidelines. The party is poised to proceed with approving a rule requiring any candidate seeking the Democratic presidential nomination to formally identify as a Democrat. It is not clear that the rule would prohibit a second run by Sanders, who is an independent caucuses with Democrats in the Senate. Sanders could simply register as a Democrat to seek the nomination. But the rule is unmistakably a reflection of many Democratic insiders' resentment of the Vermont senator's presidential run. And some progressives fear it could disenchant unaffiliated voters interested in trying to influence the party's direction and its next presidential nominee. Download. Do you have information you want to share with HuffPost? Here's how. Photo Gallery 2017 Scenes from Congress.